Good morning. I'm Olivia Holas for Boca Magazine, and it's time for a coffee break with special guest attorney Michael Westheimer of Jed Lawyers. It's nice to meet you. You are one of the attorneys I have yet to meet at Jed Lawyers.
Yes, good morning. It's great meeting you as well, Olivia.
Well, you are specialized in personal injury litigation. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, and we are going to be talking about getting the right auto insurance coverage. I think that probably many of us are not selecting the right policies. So, could you please touch upon the different types of components that we should look into as a consumer when selecting auto insurance?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the state of Florida, there's only a certain limited amount of coverage that's required for you as a driver. And it's two components. There's one which is PIP, personal injury protection. There's no maximum. In other words, you can only get $10,000 in PIP coverage. The nuance in that is that you could still require or request to have a deductible, as well as other little nuances like work loss, as well as resident relative coverage. But besides the PIP, they also are requiring drivers to have what's called PD, which stands for property damage. So in the state of Florida, you only have to have two things: property damage of $10,000, which protects you if you get into an accident and it's your fault. Your insurance would cover up to $10,000 in damages. Now, that $10,000, Olivia, is a minimum, meaning you can always get more, and I would certainly suggest you do get more, but the minimum is $10,000 in PD, and then the PIP is $10,000. But just because that's the minimum, that's not necessarily what should be taken out by a consumer. In Florida, as many people may be aware, we have either uninsured drivers or underinsured, meaning they don't have enough coverage. So if you were to get into an accident with that minimum coverage, you don't have any protection for the event that someone becomes injured. So that's why we at Jed Lawyers would always suggest you get as much coverage as possible. And, two other components that are very, very important is to have what's called bodily injury coverage and uninsured motorist coverage. And to make it as easy as possible to understand, bodily injury coverage inures the benefit of yourself. What that means is if you're at fault for an accident and someone were to go after you for the negligence you caused in that accident, that injured person will go after you. Now, if you have bodily injury coverage, your insurance carrier would represent you up to the amount of coverage that you have on that policy. Now, oftentimes the minimum is $10,000, but you can go over $1 million. And then the lastly, that coverage, uninsured motorist, it inures the benefit if the other person does not have adequate insurance or not at all. It stands in the shoes of the at-fault party and enables you to recover compensation if you were to get injured.
Right, but you would probably highly recommend that we all get additional coverage, increase our limits, correct?
Yeah, and I always tell clients, if you can feasibly do so, because I understand certain people are in situations where, that they don't have the financial means to spend, a lot of money on insurance. And unfortunately for us Floridians, we have one of the largest premiums in the country when it comes to insurance rates, especially down here in South Florida. But if I can encourage, if you can financially do so, I would very much recommend that you have everything. And what I mean by everything is it's the two minimum requirements, which is property damage and PIP, but also have bodily injury, uninsured motorists, and then comp and collision. And if you have all of those aspects, including the rental policy as well, God forbid you get into an accident, whether it's your fault or not, you are well protected, and it would make the process that much smoother.
And what is the statistic for uninsured motorists in Florida?
That's candidly, I don't know the specific statistic, but I can tell you in my personal experience, I've been practicing for just over 9 years. I've dealt with hundreds of cases that we've had to turn down, not because they didn't have a good case in the sense that, hey, that person, we can't prove that person was at fault. It's because they just don't have proper insurance. And as stated earlier, Olivia, the requirement is only to have property damage and PIP, which unfortunately people don't even have that all the time. But if they don't have what's called bodily injury insurance, you can legally go after that person. But financially speaking, if they don't have the bodily injury coverage, realistically, they don't have much assets. So, I don't know the specific statistic, but I can tell you it is high enough that I would strongly encourage every person to get coverage. But one thing that I want to just explain is that in order to get coverage in the state of Florida, you have to have bodily injury coverage. So in other words, before you can protect yourself in the event that you get injured that's not your fault in an accident, you have to have coverage that would protect you if you were at fault, which is bodily injury. And your coverage cannot exceed the coverage you have for bodily injury, but it can be less. So for example, if you have what's called $100,000 in bodily injury coverage, you can get up to $100,000 in uninsured motorist coverage, but you can't get more. You can get less, just not more.
Mm-hmm. Wow, all really valuable information, and things that I think many of us don't even really realize. And you were mentioning before we went live that you have been dealing also with a lot of clients that are moving in from out of state, and things are a little bit different here in Florida than they are in New York. So can you please elaborate on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, different states in the United States obviously have different requirements. And certain states actually require you to have, what's called bodily injury coverage. But in Florida, they don't require you to have a certain amount of coverage. Now, in the state of New York, now listen, I'm not a licensed attorney in New York, so I can't tell you the law, but it's my understanding they require you to have bodily injury coverage, as well as coverage, uninsured motorists. So not only does it in New York, do they protect you from someone else causing an injury, but it also protects you if you cause it. But in Florida, it's a lot more relaxed that we don't require bodily injury. So if a New Yorker, let's say, does move down to Florida, which I don't blame them, but if they do, they're not, they might think that, hey, I already have all this coverage, so I'm not going to change anything. But they have to understand that in Florida, there's less coverage you need. So you have to be, very cognizant of that.
Right. And what is a common mistake you're finding consumers making when selecting their policies? Is it not having that proper coverage from all, on all those aspects? Or is there another common mistake that you're seeing?
Yeah, the three most common mistakes are not having bodily injury, uninsured motorist, and rental. And I'll touch on the rental in a second because it sounds a little comical that, why do you have to have rental? But if you're at fault for an accident and you cause that accident, the only way that you can have your insurance cover you for a rental vehicle while it's getting repaired is if you have that on your policy. But I can tell you firsthand knowledge. I unfortunately was just rear-ended on Monday of this week, actually. First time in 25 years I got rear-ended. I got into one other accident when I was 16, but besides that, this is my second accident I've ever been in. And coincidentally, we were just finishing almost a week trial in Palm Beach. We just got a verdict for shy of just $1.6 million for our client. We were going to celebrate that wonderful victory when I was rear-ended at a stop on 95 because of traffic. Yeah, well, and it's Thursday. So it's been 4 days since the accident, but yet they still have not admitted fault. Even though the vehicle I was driving in has cameras in the front, the back, I submitted cameras from my vehicle showing I got rear-ended, yet they still haven't admitted fault. So the importance of that is my car, I can't drive right now. It's in the repair shop. And because they haven't admitted fault yet, they won't extend any rental. But luckily in my policy, I have a rental policy. So because of that, I'm able to get a rental, which I have now, and they're paying for it until we can get the at-fault insurance company to accept liability, and they'll just reimburse them. So I strongly suggest people get at least rental because, it's traumatic enough getting into an accident. having that peace of mind that, you can at least get another vehicle, whether you need to have it to transport your family or go to coming from work, having that rental is important. But, also what's very important is that uninsured motorist, because the person that hit me has a $10,000 policy. What I mean by that is he is the bare minimum. He has property damage of 10,000 and he has PIP of 10,000. That's it. So my vehicle damage is definitely more than $10,000. So if I didn't have proper collision, I would not be able to get my vehicle fixed completely because there's not enough coverage. And he doesn't have any bodily injury insurance. So if I'm injured in this accident and I needed to get compensation for my injuries, the only way I would be able to do so is with my uninsured motorist policy, which I do have. And that's why I always say it's super important to have the bodily injury coverage, which is not mandatory, but is not required, but is strongly suggested to protect yourself. But then also that coverage, which protects you if that other person doesn't have enough insurance and it's their fault.
Well, first of all, I hope that A, you're okay, and B, that you're able to still celebrate.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I had a much more muted celebration because of that traumatic instance. But, fortunately, as I stated earlier, if you have the proper coverages, you always say, I never think I'm going to need it, but it's that one time that you do need it. And because I have every, not required, but every possible coverage that my insurance would allow me to have, regardless of what the other person have, I'm well covered. I may be driving around in a rental for several weeks because of the chip shortage and getting everything shipped over and repaired. But fortunately, I'm here to talk to you today, and I'm feeling okay. But it's very important that if you could feasibly do so, get that bodily injury coverage as well as that uninsured motorist coverage.
Well, let me tell you this, that person who rear-ended you really did not pick the best person to rear-end. You definitely are, with all of your knowledge, you know what to do in this situation. And recently,
Yes.
Governor DeSantis, he vetoed the PIP repeal law. What's your opinion on the governor vetoing the bill?
Yeah, in Florida, I think it's very, very important to have PIP. And I say that with the understanding that I myself have health insurance as well. So when you get into a car accident, even if you have health insurance, your PIP is primary. And not only is it primary, it's a no fault part of the insurance. And what that means is it's just a fancy word for saying, regardless if you're at fault for the accident, your PIP pays the first $10,000 minus any deductible you have, and then your insurance kicks in. But in Florida, again, a lot of people either don't have health insurance, because many people can understand health insurance is very high. And if you're not, if you don't work for a corporation or a big business, sometimes getting health insurance can be intimidating and cost prohibitive. So also, there was a study that was done recently that said if PIP was to be abolished and they would require a mandatory bodily injury, your premiums were going to skyrocket. So we believe it's very important to have PIP because it ensures that you get the best medical treatment. By the providers will never have to worry about getting compensated, at least to some degree, because if you have PIP, they'll get compensated. But if you have, let's say, mandatory bodily injury and you don't have health insurance, that might be a hard pill to swallow with some of these providers. So we're very happy that PIP stayed in place. It's been in place now for a few decades, and we're hoping it stays in place in the future, because it's very important for people to be protected and make sure that they get the best health care that they can get.
Absolutely. And I know that, other fellow attorneys at Jet Lawyers have offered to take a look at your policy and help us see if there's anything that we should be doing better, if we should be changing our policy. So, I know that that's a resource that has been offered by Marty and some of your other colleagues at Jet Lawyers, which I think is very helpful, and we appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a personal injury attorney myself, we work what's on called a contingency. And what that means is it's a fancy word to say that if we don't recover for you for any injury or accident that was caused by someone else, we do not recover anything. So in other words, it's a win-win for you. And if anything, we may have to, absorb anything that was spent if we cannot recover. However, at any point in time, if they want to reach out to us or even myself personally, and they want me to look at their policy and see if, if we can give them any suggestions, feel free. It's very easy. It's mwestheimer@jedlawyers.com, or they can even call and ask for myself. I'm willing to speak to anyone regarding any policy questions, insurance questions, or just to pick my brain. It's free of charge, and we're here to help out anyone in the community that may feel like they need something.
That's awesome. What a wonderful resource for our viewers and our community. My last question always ends up being
Sure.
a fun one.
Okay.
So here it is. What is your all-time favorite car?
My all-time favorite car.
Since we're talking about auto insurance, and if you could drive any car, Michael, what would it be?
Good question. Now, I tend to tell anyone that knows me very well can relate that I can be a frugal person. I don't like spending money, but when it comes to cars, there's no shortage in spending on that. So, I'm a big tech guy. I love technology. So basically any car that has a lot of cool technology. I've had buddies, one of my good friends has a Lamborghini, which I was able to drive, fortunately, the Audi R8s, the Ferraris, the Teslas I love. So if I could drive any car, I would probably say it's either the brand new Tesla S, the Plaid Plus, that goes for not too much. It's only about 120 grand. And I say that facetiously, or probably a Ferrari. I know it sounds very cliche. I mean, I think a Bugatti, I'd be too afraid to even, pull it out of a driveway. But I would say either the highest end Tesla or a nice Ferrari. I mean, I like fast and technologically advanced cars. So, I'll take either one. I won't be picky.
I love it. Well, I'm sure that's not your rental car right now. So
no, unfortunately, no. I asked for the Ferrari rental, but they said that was already taken out. So maybe next time.
All right. Well, Michael, this was such a wealth of information, and we cannot thank you enough for spending time to share with some valuable information and really great points to take in. So thank you for your time.
No, Olivia, it's been a pleasure, and I always look forward to talking with you. And to all the viewers, again, if there's any questions or concerns, feel free to reach out to us 24/7, 365 days of the year. We're here to help you out and help you out in any of the troubling times that you have.
That's really great. Well, thank you, Michael, and thank you to our viewers for tuning in. Have a wonderful Thursday and a wonderful weekend. Take care. Bye.
Thank you. You as well, Olivia. Take care.